Let's go, people, let's go. It's prognosis negative time.
Hi, this is Eric, and welcome back. This is another Prognosis Negative Cinema Quickie by me. Let me apologize in advance for the sound quality. I'm trying to stay true to the concept and record this in the parking lot outside the movie theater. And where I am right now in the world, it is literally over 100 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale right now. So rather than die like I did in the last Cinema Quickie, I had to have a little bit of AC to get through this. But onward with the movie of the day, The Flash. Oh boy, The Flash. This is a bit of an overstuffed burrito, yet somehow not the worst DC EU movie. I'm seeing this after opening weekend. The numbers are already in, and it did not look good for DC and Warner Brothers Studios. I don't think it was that bad a movie, but maybe people are just so turned off at this point with the state of things over there in DCU land. I don't know. But I went in with an open mind, and of course I had to check out and see what all the lack of hype was about. Once again, there will be mild to medium spoilers, but I'll try not to spoil any of the big things for those who care, who are listening to this. Right off the bat, DC live-action movies of this era have always had a CG problem, and this movie is no different in that way. And there's a particularly off-putting scene, which is kind of like the opening action extravaganza in the movie. And let's just say that no one ever asked for the dancing baby meme from Ally McBeal to be fully realized in live action, ? I don't even know if that counts as live action. The only way I could accept this scene, or I think anyone could, is if you just let it all go. Like you cannot take this movie seriously, or that seriously. You just have to take it in like this is a kid's movie or a CW movie, and just roll with it. Just roll with it. It almost reminds me of back in the day when I used to watch The Flash, the CW version of The Flash on TV. And the first time they showed the shark character, I don't know if that was like season 3 or something. I almost had to quit the show at that point. I did quit it later, in later seasons, but this reminded me of how off-putting the shark guy was in the Flash CW series. Yeah, not a great way to start things. I almost wished that whole scene didn't exist, or that it was completely different in this movie. Now, of course, everyone knows from all the trailers and PR that Michael Keaton is back in this flick. And I gotta say, Michael Keaton, he somehow looks more youthful than he's looked in 5+ years in this movie, because I don't know if there was some de-aging done subtly, because to me, the actor looked much older as he appeared like in the Birdman movie or the Spider-Man MCU movie that he appeared in as the Vulture. His face looked a lot more youthful now throughout the movie, except for something near the end. But other than that, he looked quite young, and all things considered. And I'm not sure what that was all about. Now, while it was cool to see Michael Keaton, and of course I have a lot of nostalgia for his time in the suit, I have to say, even though it was obviously real Michael Keaton, now that I'm sitting here thinking back over the whole movie, even though it was the Michael Keaton, you could have told me that was a CGI recreated performance, kind of like Grand Moff talking in Rogue One. Like, yeah, it's him, but it's not really him, or it's like a facsimile of him, because while he hits the beats of being Batman as far as the movie's concerned, it's still almost like he's not even there, or it's like a virtual representation, even though he is there. And this has to do with the writing and everything else going on in the movie more than anything. It's no fault of the actor himself. But perhaps if you've already seen this movie, you'll know what I mean by, yes, it is him, but it all still feels like an empty shell of his Batman and Bruce Wayne. There are some new side characters, incidental characters that are added to this movie who we haven't seen before. And to be honest, for me, they're all either terrible or why bother? Like really, like no. And I recognize the one who was a big TikTok/Vine influencer. Great, but the characters themselves are not great, and somehow, no offense to the actress playing Iris, but she even seems less formidable in the role than, say, the CW version of Iris. I don't even know how that's possible. Like, it's just not good. It's just not good. But there is one shining beacon amongst those faces we've never seen. And I don't want to get too into it because it'll just make me seem weird. But there's no other way to put it. But Kara is an absolute smoke show in this movie. And even though her character is about as one-dimensional as mostly everyone else in this movie, I still wouldn't mind seeing her again in something, you know. A lot of things are possible. I hope we see more great things from old Kara in the future. One of the bright spots of the movie, all things considered, once again. I have to keep qualifying everything for some reason. I'm not going to get into the many cameos and Easter eggs and member berries and such to not spoil everything. Although there was perhaps one or two I would have liked to have seen a little nod to that we did not see at all. But I'm not going to say who those were. So obviously this is a big multiverse movie. And it's just so weird how Hollywood works, because multiverse has been all the rage lately, hasn't it? MCU in series form and in movie form has just been ramming that concept down our throats. Of course, even the Spider-Verse as well. And MCU has at least one Spider-Man project recently, and I've already spoken about Sony's Across the Spider-Verse, that have Spider-Man multiverse stories that do pack some emotional punches. There is no doubt about it. I will not forget seeing No Way Home and hearing the in-theater cheers and cries of joy at certain scenes in that movie. That was a magical moment to experience in real life. But I don't know how you could get that jazzed in this particular movie, in this Flash movie, for some of the things you see. Because when you see some of those things, first of all, some of the nostalgia won't even hit right probably with a lot of the audience, because they're just not old enough. But then even for those who are old enough, it kind of reminds you of when things were better. Or sort of, or it kind of reminds you of a time when there wasn't so much negative feelings around DC live action movies in a weird way. Or maybe I'm just putting my post movie spin on it, but it's just like, oh yeah, okay, that was the thing I recognize, but you're not. This is not evoking what it's supposed to be evoking. And then the actual events in the actual movie itself, in the plot, that are supposed to be poignant. First of all, the Flash's story, depending on how engaged you are with this character in media, it's a little bit like the Batman origin story in that we've seen it all 1,000 times. So most people kind of already know what went on with Barry. And what shaped his character, and so that was not exciting to re-experience. And even if it was your first time, I don't even know. I mean, if you don't even know this character, can you just all of a sudden feel the emotional weight of it? I don't know. It doesn't land. I have to say also, while Ezra Miller is fine, I guess, in the movie, I could not stop thinking about all the things. I'm just going to be honest. Couldn't stop thinking about all the things swirling around him that have swirled around him in the media the last few years. But then another weird thing about him and the movie is that going back to the Justice League movie, whether it was the Joss Whedon cut or the Snyder cut, I actually remember quite liking the Flash, that he was almost like my favorite thing in that movie at the time, because his humor just felt spot on and really, really funny. Whereas a lot of the gags in this movie are just terrible. There's a few that are okay in the gag department, but I mean, there's the obvious pun there to make on all the gagging for all the other terrible humor and frustrating things that happen Flash adjacent. I mean, adjacent to the character. A lot of unfunny humor. I guess this is finally the swan song for the DCEU as we knew it, that was originally set up as the Snyderverse. And okay, I mean, alright. It is weird how you can still feel a little bit of the look and style of Snyder, even though this movie is I mean, not this movie, but everything's become so bastardized in this universe. I'm talking about in terms of style and aesthetic. Since Snyder's departure, since Whedon came in, since other directors have had to go, this is like the weird tatters remaining. I suppose at the end of the day, this is a good way to set up how DC movies can go in a new direction due to, learning about the multiverse and how things are compared to spaghetti. I guess that's a decent setup for going in a whole new direction. La-di-da. But still, DC, Warner Brothers, what is going on? Or what has been going on? I am sure this movie went through so many different iterations and so many reshoots and so many changes in script and rewrites, and I'm sure it was a nightmare. But when you see the finished product, if you didn't know all the backstory behind the scenes, you would think, is this really an expensive movie? Because aside from the CG budget, which is a lot of CG, this movie is almost as CG as The Way of Water, except not. But it feels like 80% CG with live actors plugged in here and there. If you didn't know the entire backstory of the making of this movie, you would think this is a really low budget affair in terms of actual location shooting combined with just a ton of CG. And it doesn't have that traditional big movie feel that you would expect from any type of blockbuster or big superhero movie. It's just really mediocre at the end of the day. It is almost like a CW episode with a movie budget. But hey, I'm sure some people will love it, but the bar has been so raised already with some significant superhero movies in the last 10 years that this, honestly, to me is just like a dying gasp of air for our poor DCEU. I can't even believe that this is the same studio that collaborated with Christopher Nolan on his trilogy of Batman movies, because I still revisit those movies, here and there, and you cannot take this serious. Like, you cannot take it seriously. If you're an alien anthropologist and you were looking into these archives of human entertainment, and you would see like The Dark Knight, and then you would see The Flash, and you would be confused as an alien archaeologist. Wait, this movie came out, what, 15 years after this movie? Like, what happened to humankind? Did they devolve? Like, what is going on? How? But there you go. And out of 5 smoke show Kryptonians, I guess I'm on the fence about this right now. I guess I will give this movie a tepid 3 smoke show Kryptonians. I guess I'm being nice. It's probably more of a 2.5, to be honest. But right now, I'm in an okay mood. Who knows how I feel down the road. So a tepid 3 out of 5 smoke show Kryptonians. I gotta get out of here. It's too hot. I have no idea when I'm going to the movies again. But until then, for Prognosis Negative, this is Eric, and the parking lot is yours.
Prognosis negative.